So, Solon and Croesus, section D. Now we know that Croesus then has just dismissed Solon as being a foolish man and sent him packing. And this is the behaviour of a man full of hubris. And we know the Greek word hubris meaning something like arrogance and self-importance. And we know that the punishment for hubris is nemesis, and that nemesis is going to catch up with Croesus. And in the next section, nemesis duly arrives. So what do we have? Well, we've got, so our first word is meta, after, with the accusative case. The verb here, oikomai, is to depart. So we have here, after Solon departed, nemesis megale, great retribution. Great retribution ek thou, from the god. We'd probably say from the gods. Great retribution from the gods. Captured Croesus. We'd probably say something like overtook Croesus. And then we have two odd little words here, hos ekasai, which we're going to translate as something like apparently, or so it would appear, because he thought himself to be of men, of all men, olbiotaton, the most happy, the most prosperous. So Croesus's opinion that he is the luckiest, most prosperous of all men proves his hubris, and hubris is punished by the gods. So in the next sentence we're told by Herodotus what form this nemesis took. For the Persians captured, haireo is the verb, and its strong aorist is halon. For the Persians captured Sardis, Croesus' capital, and they took prisoner, zogreo is the verb, they took prisoner Croesus himself. And then this arxanta, which is accusative, going with Croeson, accusative, means having ruled. Arco, you know, means I rule. Having ruled, we'd probably say who had ruled for years 4 and 10. Who had ruled for 14 years. And having captured him, labontes, auton, they led, you know, ergagon, it's the strong aorist of ago, they led him parakouron, into the presence of Cyrus. Now, you mustn't, of course, confuse these two kings, whose names both begin with kappa. You've got Croesus, king of the Lydians, and you've got Cyrus, king of the Persians. And do not confuse the two. If you remember, it was Croesus had sent to Delphi to inquire of the oracle if he should attack the Persians, if he should attack Cyrus, and the oracle had said, well, if you do, you will destroy a great kingdom. And Croesus, being an arrogant man full of hubris, he assumes that that means he will destroy Cyrus's kingdom. He overlooks the possibility that he might destroy his own kingdom. Next sentence, Hodde. So Hodde is Cyrus, king of the Persians, and Cyrus, sunesos, aorist participle, a weak aorist participle, having piled up a puron megalen, a large pyre, Now, a pyre is like a large bonfire. We're coming up to bonfire night now as I record this, and on top of a bonfire we burn a guy, an effigy of Guy Fawkes. Here, on top of this pyre is going to be placed Croesus himself. He's going to be executed in a most cruel way. The Greeks often burned bodies, especially, say, after a battle. There'd be many bodies to be disposed of, and a rather quick, simple way to dispose of the bodies would be simply to put them on a large bonfire and burn them. But the cruelty of this is that, of course, Croesus is going to be burned alive. So Cyrus, having piled up a large pyre, P-Y-R-E, anabibatstos, the verb. Notice the prefix ana, meaning up. He forced Cyrus up, ep-autan, onto it being the pyre. Pyre is feminine, puran, as you can see, megalen, and autan refers, therefore, to the pyre. He forced Croesus up onto it, but it's not just Croesus, it's Croesus te. So it's both Croesus and, here's the chi in the next line, and twice 7, and this is Greek for 14, twice, that is 14 children of the Lydians with him. So together with Croesus there are also 14 Lydian children. Let's just go back though. Croesus is described. Croesus is ton kroison, is dedemonon, and this is a passive participle. It's a perfect passive participle in actual fact, meaning bound, tied up, and tied up en pedis, in chains. So Croesus is bound in chains so that he can't escape. And then in the next sentence, we focus not on the 14 children, but on Croesus himself, and it's in the dative case, as we can see, toi kroisoi. So to Croesus, standing, hestoti means standing, the iota on the end shows you that it's third declension dative, whereas Croesus is second declension dative. To Croesus, standing on the pyre, came erkomai, elthon. In fact, it's s erkomai, came to, but we'll just say came. But the subject is postponed. We don't know what came to Croesus as he stood on the pyre. Herodotus postpones it and leaves the reader waiting. And we're not told, in actual fact, until the end of the line, to Solonos. Literally, the thing of Solon. It's the neuter noun, to. Now, we can't say the thing of Solon. We're going to say the warning of Solon. So as Croesus stands on the pyre, Solon's warning comes back to him. What about this clause in the middle beginning kaipa? So kaipa means although, as you know. So although being onti. Now you know, we're not going to say in actual fact although being, we're going to say although he was in evil so great. I don't think we'll say evil, we'll probably say although he was in such great, in such a terrible position, although he was in such a terrible position, nevertheless, Solon's warning comes back to him. Solon's warning comes back to him. How, hose here at the end of the line, how it had been said, in actual fact, eremenon comes from lego, I speak, or how it had been spoken. Yeah, let's not say said. How it had been spoken Notice eiremenon is neuter because it's describing to Solonos, the thing of Solon. How it had been spoken sun theoi. Well, not with the god. What we're going to say is with divine inspiration. How it had been spoken with divine inspiration. Basically, Croesus is astounded at how accurate Solon's prophecy had been. It's as if he was inspired by Apollo, the god of prophecy. And then we are given the contents, or a summary of Solon's warning, and that's why the to is repeated. The warning of Solon, the warning that said, and then we have quotation marks, nobody to be of the living happy. So what would we say? The warning that none of the living is happy. Now, this summary of Solon's warning isn't really accurate. It's often, Solon's warning is often summarized as, call no man happy until he's dead. Now, in actual fact, that isn't particularly accurate as a summary of what Solon said. Solon said you can call people happy, but you have to look at the whole life, especially at the end of their life. So, what do we have in this last sentence? To Croesus, as he stood on the pyre, there came, although he was in such great misfortune, the warning of Solon, how it had been spoken with divine inspiration, the warning that none of the living are happy. So here we are in the second part of section D, and what does Croesus do? Don't forget the drama of this situation. There is Croesus, the king of Lydia, and now talking about pride before a fall. Now he has fallen completely. He's been captured by an enemy king. He's going to be executed. He's standing on top of a pyre. He's about to be burnt alive. And we have, in actual fact, I suppose, so Croesus has remembered the words of Solon. And now we start with two participles in actual fact. This is anapheromai. Again, it's ana, isn't it? It's up. It's I suppose it's sort of like he picks himself up. I think we'll say he's having recovered. And then we have another aorist participle. Stenadsto is the verb. In fact, it's another ana prefix. Anastenadsto, which is to groan. I suppose it's not surprising that Croesus might groan in such a circumstance. Having recovered himself and having groaned, I know it's out of ek, but I'm going to translate it as after a long silence. What does he do? He named onomadsto. He named Solon as tris up to 3 times. So he stands there on the pyre and he names Solon aloud. He calls on Solon, and people hear him naming this man. Cyrus included hears him. Here we have Cyrus, having heard this name, Solon, he ordered the interpreters to ask Croesus who, in fact it's the accusative, we ought to say whom he was calling upon. And they, the interpreters, pros elfontes, having approached, they asked him. It is ep erotao. And what does Croesus do then when these interpreters come up to him and say, who is this Solon? What are you talking about? Well, Croesus teos for a short while, I suppose we'll say kept silence, being asked. There's the passive participle of erotao. Croesus being asked kept silence for a while. I suppose we won't say after, we'll say, but then he said that. Now, Lego, you know, takes the hotty hose construction of indirect statement. Here we have hose. Normally you'd have hotty. He said that once upon a time Solon had come. Akomai. Solon being an Athenian, who was an Athenian, and this verb is thearmai, which is to see, to observe. It's where we get our word theatre from, in actual fact. And having seen all the wealth of him, that is to say, all Croesus's wealth, and having seen all Croesus's wealth, prosperity, there's our verb, apoflauridzo. Now that's quite an unusual verb, and it means to dismiss, to depreciate, to think light of. And it's interesting that wealth, olbon, the accusative of olbos, and this verb, apoflauridzo, are what we call juxtaposed. This, in a nutshell, is Solon's opinion of wealth. It's nothing. It's something to be made light of. Solon's not interested in wealth. So, and having seen all Croesus's wealth, he had made light of it. He had dismissed it. And everything, panta, here's the verb, it's apobino in actual fact, and everything had turned out for him, for Croesus, just as that man had said, that man being Solon. Again, Croesus is expressing his astonishment at the ability of Solon to prophesy exactly what would happen. He knew that Croesus was heading for a fall. And everything had turned out for him just as that man had said. Legon is our next word, speaking, and it's the nominative participle, legon, legusa, legon, and it agrees with ekenos, that man, Solon. So, exactly as that man had said, speaking, this is Solon, speaking, no more about or with reference to himself, that is Croesus. So what is Croesus saying here? Solon had spoken no more with reference to himself than with reference to the whole of humanity. So Croesus is saying that Solon's warning was directed not only at himself, although it was very effectively directed against him, but in actual fact it was a warning for all men, all of humanity. And in fact, in the last few words of this passage, Croesus identifies a particular group to whom Solon's warning is particularly appropriate. So, speaking no more with reference to himself than with reference to the whole of humanity, and in particular those tous dokuntos, those seeming to themselves to be prosperous, happy, fortunate. So they are the group that Solon's warning is particularly appropriate for. The people who seem to themselves to be prosperous and fortunate. Notice that there's a lot of emphasis upon the participle dokuntos, seeming. There's a big difference between seeming and reality, and Croesus is now beginning to learn that lesson the hard way.